It was the summer of 1980. The Olympics were about to take place in Moscow. The world was in crisis. The games were threatened. The USA reacted, imposing sanctions on the USSR and boycotting the games. Today's topic is between Jimmy Carter and Allen Onyema, their place in sports history. Once again, it was the summer of 1980. The Olympics were about to take place in Moscow. The world was in crisis. The games were threatened. The USA reacted, imposing sanctions on the USSR and boycotting the games. It was a model established during the previous games in 1976 by African countries that deployed the power of sport to fight a global injustice. In December of 1979, the USSR invaded Afghanistan and took over that Asian country. The man that was president of the United States, 447 American athletes were made to pay the ultimate prize in sport, giving up their dreams of becoming Olympians and missing out on the benefits that often came with this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to become rich, powerful, and famous. All of this for a cause unconnected directly to sport. It was a huge sacrifice by the innocent USA athletes, considering that there was an alternative. They could have done what British athletes did. The UK boycotted the games, but the athletes competed as individuals. So what did the American government do to compensate the American athletes? 2 weeks ago, Jimmy Carter died. Part of the tributes written in his honor during his burial was a recall of the aftermath of the 1980 games that the USA boycotted for reasons outside of sport. He invited the affected American athletes to the White House. He feted them. He recognized them officially in America as Olympians, and he decorated each of them with the U.S. Congressional Award, the highest civilian honor in the United States of America. That's what President Carter did. President Jimmy Carter once ran into one of the athletes at the airport several years after the boycott. He went to the athlete and apologized to him, saying, "I am sorry." It was a lesson to the world on how to treat sports heroes that make the ultimate sacrifice. What happened at the Montreal Olympics on how not to treat sports heroes used as political pawns. It was 1976. The 21st Olympiad was about to start in the Canadian city of Montreal. The frontline states in Africa were fighting a war of liberation and independence. These were countries sharing common border with South Africa. They included Angola, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Namibia, and so on. Nigeria was far away in West Africa, but as the undisputed giant of Africa at the time, probably the only African country with the might, the means, and the resources to champion the cause of fighting the last vestiges of colonialism and apartheid in the continent, was a leader of the frontline struggle. Nigeria was staying up front in pursuit of justice for brother Africans. Along with Tanzania, Nigeria led 29 countries, 27 of them from Africa, to boycott the 1976 Olympic Games for the first time in history. It was a huge price to pay for the athletes to give up the life-changing, once-in-a-lifetime chance for the struggle against injustice to fellow Africans. It was the first such major political incursion into international sport. It gave birth to probably the worst Olympic Games in history, one that denied hundreds of African athletes the opportunity to showcase their talent and to exploit the opportunities that would have impacted their lives for good and forever as Olympians and possible medal winners. It was quite a sacrifice to make. The athletes were thrown out of the Games village like dirty rags. And what did the governments of the 27 African countries do to compensate or reward their athletes? To this day, 48 years later, nothing. Zot. Zero. Rien de tout. Their story and sacrifice were forgotten, buried in the archives of gathering dust, until 2 years ago, a humble Nigerian citizen, Onyema, came along, heard the Montreal Olympic story, and decided to do what Jimmy Carter did 45 years ago, and even more. As Jimmy Carter was being buried as a hero in the United States, I was remembering Onyema, who is alive and kicking. 2 years ago, before an audience that included some legendary international athletes, Phil Babaye from Tanzania, Ron Freeman from the USA, all the surviving members of the 1976 Nigerian Olympic team, Onyema held a reception where he recalled their sacrifice. He feted them and celebrated the athletes and rewarded each one of them. He funded the construction of a beautiful edifice within the premises of Nigeria's foremost diplomatic institution, the Nigeria Institute of International Affairs in Lagos, with a wall of fame on which were inscribed in gold the names of all the athletes. The structure has become a national monument forever. Allen further appointed them ambassadors of Air Peace, the largest privately owned commercial airline fleet in Africa, with the benefit to fly free of charge and in business class on any domestic route in Nigeria, any number of times, and on one international flight a year to any destination around the world where Air Peace flies to, and for the rest of their lives. I testify that we are all enjoying the benefits till today. This 18th day of January 2025, Jimmy Carter and Onyema are on my mind. May the creator of the universe bless them both.